The Titans have fallen. The last remaining Thargoid forces have been ejected from the bubble. The war is won. With all that having happened, a lot of commanders are now wondering what is happening right now within the game and what's next. What's next for the overall game narrative? What's next for the Anti-Xeno Initiative and the Xeno Strike Force? And maybe most importantly, what is next for you personally? In this final update of the Thargoid War, we will talk about all of those themes. Let's start with current affairs and what is happening within the game right now. Rewards have been given out, so if you participated in the assault on Titan Cojillo, the pre-engineered frameshift drives are available for you at the rescue megaship Hutner, which is the one that you'll find with this green and blue icon in Lutenstar. So you can go pick them up there. You can also transfer them to your fleet carrier or favorite station remotely if you don't actually want to make the trip. Those are, as expected, far and wide the best FSDs in the game, useful for pretty much any ship you can think of, be it an explorer, a combat ship, a trader, a miner, anything really. They are not only available as a CG reward, with the exception of a Class 2, which is solely a CG reward, and thus that makes it a one-of-a-kind, noting that a Class 2 FSD is only used on a hauler and sidewinder, so you'll have to choose between those two ships, which one gets its exclusive and one-of-a-kind module. But for all other modules, Class 3 and up, you are now able to purchase them at tech brokers, at human tech brokers specifically. The new SCO drive, in addition to a bundle of other mats that I'm sure you can look up on the wiki, even though I should be giving you that update. I don't have it on hand right now, so I apologize for that. But in addition to a bundle of other materials that are more commonly available, the new material that is a lot more exotic that you need for those drive components, for those new drives, is a Titan drive component, is it? I believe it's called a drive component. That's a very rare material found only at Titan graveyards. Titan graveyards, like the one staring in front of us at Titan Cojillo. I will show you a brief video of how to go scavenging in a Titan graveyard, which is, especially if you've been Titan bombing, a very accessible activity, which is something that you can do with pretty much any ship and no combat experience whatsoever. And you will need to do this if you want access to additional drives of those pre-engineered / double-engineered SCO drives, which, as I mentioned again, are the best in the game. So presumably you will want to be stocking up on these. Now, when it comes to graveyards, first, you need to know that there's different states of these graveyards. Right after the Titan blows, as in right now, they are in their highest caustic state. So there's still a caustic cloud here, but the caustic is very, very light. So you can bring caustic sinks if you want, and they will last a long time. But in reality, and I'll show you now, you don't even really need caustic sinks because a simple Class 5 or higher repair limpet controller is sufficient to out-repair the damage that the caustic will be doing. And consequently, you don't even really need caustic sinks to do graveyard scavenging at Cojillo right now. The state of the graveyard advances every week. So 1 week from now, it will have less caustic and it will be more of a transparent / translucent kind of environment. And 2 weeks from now, the caustic will be entirely gone and NPCs will start spawning. Typically, you will find Thargoid patrols at Titan sites for reasons that I'm still investigating. In my previous dive at the graveside of Titan Cojillo, I did not encounter any Thargoid patrols. So we'll see if on this run we encounter some or not. In the meanwhile, we'll get our collector limpers out. Now you'll see I'm doing this in what I call my scavenger clipper, but the reality is you can use pretty much any ship to do this because it's such an accessible activity. That being said, the clipper is very fast and has great internals and is reasonably maneuverable for a ship that has both that high speed and that high optional internals. It also has a Class 7 optional internal, which lets me kit a universal limpet controller, which is nice as I can do collectors, repairs, and decons, should I choose to do decons, all in one kit. Nevertheless, right now my caustic sink has engaged. You'll see in the left-hand side of my screen how slowly it fills. I will let them both fill up, and then I will stop. I won't actually fire them. I will use a repair limpet controller at that point to show you that you can actually use a repair limpet controller and don't need caustic sinks to do this. Anyhow, once you arrive here at the gravesite, which is where I am right now, essentially, you want to go at contacts, and a number of items will appear, which then you can filter until you find what you want. You can gather caustic crystals here. That's probably the most important thing that you want to gather. Caustic shards, which are important for the purpose of synthesizing caustic sinks, and the Titan drive components, which are the key new exotic material necessary for the purposes of engineering, acquiring the new double engineered drive. Again, this is a place where you also find propulsion elements, Thargoid carapace, and a bunch of other things. Caustic crystals are exclusively found here at this point and are necessary for anti-Guardian Zone resistance engineering, which right now doesn't really have a direct use in the game, but you never know. So I'll kind of go and pick up this one additional caustic crystal that I need to filter everything up, and then when it shows up again, I will proceed to filter it out. There's also materials that you can gather from the remnants of the Titan's basically corpse, if you want, which is beyond the purpose of this video, so I will not bother you with those. Now, keep in mind, the Thargoid drive components is very rare, so you may actually be flying around a while until you find one, so it might take some time. What I will say is the spawns at graveyards multiply when you have more commanders in the instance. So the more people you have in here, the more things spawn, and consequently this is one of those activities that, like combat zones, is better done in a group. So if you want to find more things that cater to different people, go in a group and the spawns will multiply and you will generally find things faster. So while you could do this totally solo, it is one of those things that is better done in a group. Let's see if we can somehow luck out and find something in the next 30 seconds or so. If not, we will move on and talk about the next item on our list. See, now we have caustic damage engaged, and as I mentioned, I will not proceed to pop my heat sinks. Instead, I will wait until one of my repair limpets expires, one of my collector limpets expires, to use a repair limpet instead. Boosting around usually is kind of the fastest way to get things to spawn, as they will spawn in all of the area with the debris around all over the place. That is another caustic crystal, but that I'm full of these, so I'm gonna now add this to the ignore list so that it doesn't clutter my radar with white dots that represent things that I don't need to pick up. And as you fill up on things, you will progressively add things to your ignore list. You can always remove it from the ignore list later if you suddenly decide that you need to pick more up, like in this case. As you can see, for the second time now, so I guess this is consistent, no hostiles are spawning here. So scavenging at Titan Cojillo around Sol right now is entirely safe of an activity, it would seem. I don't know if this is a bug or if this is intended, because it wasn't like this at any of the other Titans before this one. Maybe it is intended to make it more accessible to the wider player base, to not have hostiles in here, or maybe it's a bug. Like, only our friends in the UK will be able to say that with absolute certainty. That being said, you can find some pretty remarkable features here. In addition to the sort of, if you will, spines, you should be able to recognize there's dead interceptors around here as well, right, which have been stonified. And if you look closely, you also find a remnant of the thermal core. There it is. This is, you see the remnant of the thermal core, which is kind of spinning in the opposite direction, so it's kind of like getting away from us. It's going to be harder to see, but let's see if we can move on this side, and I'll show you. This is what remains of the Titan's thermal core that has basically been, I don't know what the right term is, carbonified, like completely burned out, whatever that word is. So, and there's a bunch of other cool things like that alloys. Like, there's a number of materials that you can gather here that, again, are generally either only available here or pretty difficult and tricky to acquire in other places. So, bring collector limpets, bring a fast ship, and gather up all the stuff around here. It's a great place to scavenge. Also, take in the views, because the overall view of this place is something really worth experiencing for yourself. It is absolutely stunning. of a view, especially when you have the sun in the opposite direction of where I am right now, but still, it is truly remarkable. So that is with rewards. The other rewards, both like in terms of arcs, rewards in arcs that were awarded to when you do damage to the core should have been added to your arcs account. The rewards in terms of the ship liveries and ship decals, that's a dead interceptor, by the way, that I was talking about. I'm gonna beam it so you can see it. This one here, it's like a stonified interceptor. Spooky dead interceptor. And there's another one here. The rewards in terms of liveries and decals for your ship have been also added to your cosmetics, so you can enjoy, whether it's the first Titan that you destroy, then you would access to the bleached chieftain livery and ship kit, or whether it's the 8th, in that case you would gain access to the gilded anaconda livery and ship kit. And if you want more information, I will show you in a minute on the Xenostrike Force website the detailed Titan rewards. So we've gathered quite a bit of few things. As I mentioned, we didn't find a Titan drive component. These are rare, and as I mentioned, you will find it more quickly and more easily if you go in a group. So do that, as I suggest. I'm going to stay in caustic here just to show you that it can actually stay in caustic for a very long time, even without heat sinks. And I'm going to move forward to like what's next for the game and what's next for the XSF AXI, and finally, what's next for you. So Frontier Development has officially announced that the war is over with a beautiful video that they put out today, which I highly encourage you to go and see on their social media accounts. It's moving in describing how the war has come to a conclusion. So have a look at that. And beyond that, in a pre-recorded Frontier Development Unwrapped for the holidays, they made it pretty clear that the direction of the game is going to move towards what I have long called base building, which they call colonization, but it's essentially the same thing. It's the idea of taking over as system architect unpopulated systems and starting to build infrastructure out where infrastructure doesn't exist, both in space initially and also on planets as you proceed. And again, I think the details that were revealed today were somewhat limited. They were answered like some general questions. The 10 light year radius is still there, but we'll see whether that will be tweaked or not, as it is probably the main sticking point right now, how they plan to implement that system. I have also some personal reservations on how they plan to hand out claim beacons, which I don't think should be a first come, first serve, but it should be some kind of who has the fewest systems get priority. And if the same number of people who have the same number of systems claim a new system, there should be a lottery within 24 hours or so. Otherwise, it's just a game on who wakes up the earliest at 5 a.m. on a Thursday, which is not very fun and not very fair. So there's certainly tweaks and things that can be done to that system, but it's an interesting direction in which the game as a whole is going. If you want to learn more, have a look at the recording of Frontier Unlocked or Frontier Unwrapped that is available on Twitch. In terms of where the AXI and the XSF is going, now that the war has been won, we are, for the most part, returning to the Pleiades, where most Thargoid activity is still highly present. The Coalsack and the Witchhead are two other major nebulae where Thargoid activity is also present, and we're continuing with our combat exercises and shenanigans. Like, for example, we will more likely not do a live stream on Sunday, where we will attempt to insta-gib, as in destroy instantaneously, a Thargoid Hydra by bringing a Xenostrike Force wing with a large number of modified shark cannons to bear. And I think we're going to succeed, and it's going to be quite the experience, as a Hydra has never been insta-gib before in a legit way. It has been insta-gib by using a bug that stuck it out. Like, in a legit combat scenario, a Hydra has never been insta-gib before, so we are going to give it a shot. In more interesting news to the broader community, Commander Xarian has semi-announced, I would say semi-announced because he's still working out some of the details, that he has the intent of restarting the famous so-called Finance Fridays of the Anti-Xeno Initiative. Finance Fridays were a regular Friday event, which was extraordinarily popular, especially among newer commanders, as it entailed fighting at antique xeno combat zones or at mega ships, if antique xeno combat zone was not available, in a large group to make a ton of credits. And that was particularly valuable, especially for newer commanders who have fewer credits, as at these events, it was relatively easy to make somewhere between 3 to 500 million credits an hour. And that is big money for people who are relatively new to the game, and it plays a big role in them kind of bootstrapping their antique xeno career and also getting a taste of antique xeno combat in a safer, bigger group. So that's a series of events that we plan to restart soon. We also want to throw a big party to celebrate the victory in the war. We'll talk about the details at a later date once we have more clarity with regards to what that exactly would look like and would entail. It's logistically challenging based on the nature of how the game works, but we're working on some of the details, and stay tuned. We'll let you know more as soon as we define some of the details. Beyond that, and in terms of like what this means for you personally, what I will say is you have a few choices. You can go back to whatever you were doing before, whether you were an explorer, a miner, a trader, a PvE combat pilot. Those are all activities that continue in the game, and you can potentially choose to also do them in the framework and context that the new version of Power Play offers, if that is something that interests you. I will offer you, however, an additional path. And the additional path is to pursue a career in antique xeno combat by joining the antique xeno initiative, and I'll bring up some of the resources that would help you go down that path if you're interested in going down that path. The first spot is to head to the Antique Xeno Initiative website, as it contains a wealth of information regarding the basics of Antique Xeno combat, and it contains the link to join our Discord, which is the main place of coordination and one of the biggest hubs in the game. As you can see, the AXI server has over 27,000 members, of which over 10,000 are online at this very moment. So it is a big and welcoming place where commanders of all experience levels meet to discuss the activities pertaining to antique xeno combat in the game, but also to chill and have fun, and more broadly, have a good time. The Antique Xeno Initiative is a big place. It is a bit of a meta community, if you want. It is also a pretty relaxed place where there's really no right or wrong way to go about how you play the game. It also is a place that maintains a pretty extensive wiki. So if you want to study, if you will, the encyclopedia of antique xeno combat, the AXI wiki is the closest thing that comes to that, where we talk about everything from AX mechanics to the statistics of individual environments of individual Thargoids to whatever really you may want to know about antique xeno combat. The AXI is also the group that has created Antique Xeno Academy, video available on YouTube on the same channel here. That is the best introductory video for anyone starting out in antique xeno combat. If you want to go down this path, the number one video we would recommend you watch is this one, as it will explain 80%, if not more, of what you need to know with regards to how to get started in antique xeno combat. Once you do get your feet wet, and once you do progress a little bit in your career, if you will, and improving antique xeno combat, you may also want to consider the Xenostrike Force as a bit more of an advanced group that is a little less casual. Okay, fair. A lot less casual and a lot more serious. Specifically focused about training and fighting together as wings in coordinated wing combat. We also have a number of information we also maintain. Like, for example, we were talking earlier about Titan rewards. This is a Titan reward infographic, which you might have seen online, by the way, that talks about the different rewards that you would get based on how many Titans you've taken out as part of your contribution to the war. We also have like several things about experimentals, routes, and ship build guides, and general combat guides, and our own system of ranks and promotions. But I'm not going to bore you with the details there. What I will say is, when it comes to your antique xeno career, the Anti-Xeno Initiative has done a pretty remarkable job at introducing a system of so-called ranks that, in a skill-based fashion, measure your progression. Now, if you think about the ranks in the game, in-game, in Elite, those ranks measure time spent on something, not necessarily skill. You may have killed your 7,000 NPC eagle in a Hazres. Congratulations, you are now combat elite. What that proves is that you spend a lot of time in Hazres. It doesn't prove that you're necessarily a skilled pilot or not. The Anti-Xeno Initiative ranks, when it comes to AX, instead, are very much skill-based. And they start with a series of what are called progression ranks. From pilot, which is what you joined, the first effective rank is Apollo's Wrath, that is showing that you've been able to destroy a Thargoid Cyclops interceptor in solo one-to-one combat. Then you'll go ahead and prove that you can take down a Basilisk, a Medusa, and if you really, really feel like going all the way, Hycru and Conquer is the rank that is awarded for taking down a Hydra solo. But it doesn't even stop there, as there's a series of so-called challenge ranks that are meant to train and test and instruct people with specific disciplines regarding flying in an even more advanced fashion. Like, for example, Flying Vanguard tests a commander's ability to fly ships that are not meta and fly with sort of substandard and otherwise challenging ship. Myrmidon is a time challenge. It tests and trains people in their ability to manage the clock and fly aggressively. 100% Club is the opposite. It's a test in it tests people to not take damage. It tests their ability to fly defensively. Soaring Sleipnir challenges you to turn your HUD off and not rely on the HUD and learn to fly by muscle memory and instinct. Astraea's Clarity is a challenge of precision. It trains you to have ever better aim and to make your shots count, and so on. So there's a whole system of ranks that, if you're interested in pursuing a very particular rabbit hole in Elite Dangerous, there's a lot here for you to keep you entertained for quite a while at the same time teaching you a lot about flying in some of the most advanced ways available in-game. So that's it. With that, and I say this in a almost kind of bittersweet way, as I will certainly be putting out there more updates and be talking about what other kind of activities we do in the game. But as far as the war is concerned, this is truly the final update of the war, and it is emotional after a year and a half of combat together with groups in the AXI, in the XSF, and the broader Elite community, where we've made so many friends and had such a great time, and have had also such a wonderful response in this final battle of the Battle of Saul. Now more than ever, glory to mankind, and thank you for being a part of this community and for making this game so special. Commander Mechan, over and out.